The source of Earth's crust movements. Theories may have been wrong up to now. This is what a new study reveals. Mike McCrae, Science Advances on Science Alert. As solid as our planet's crust might feel beneath our feet, we're literally surfing mountains across a churning sea of hot minerals. For years, researchers have struggled to understand what drives the complex movement of Earth's surface layers, and now we might be a bit closer to the answer. To determine whether drifting tectonic plates stir the mantle, or if the mantle's currents are what is moving the crusts, scientists have now stepped back to look at the problem in a different light, treating it all as a single system, and it's looking very complicated. An international team from École Normale Supérieure de l'Université Grenoble-Alpin in France, the University of Texas at Austin, and the US has come up with fresh new 3D models of an Earth-like world, complete with equations that took a supercomputer 9 months to solve. The results suggest we've been looking at this question the wrong way this whole time. Forget asking questions whether it's the sinking of a cooling crust that pushes against the mantle or vice versa. Both play key roles in deforming a planet's surface as it ages. We've imagined for the better part of a century that Earth's outer coat slips around like a loose suit of armor. It's placed clanking together in some parts and pulling apart in others. Early attempts to describe such a theory of plate tectonics suggested this movement could be largely the result of convection currents in the fluid of hot, pressurized rock we call the mantle as it rises, cools, and sinks again. Since the 1950s, we've learned a great deal about how the surface sinks in some parts and rises in others, churning out fresh new rock while melting old crust in a constant conveyor belt of destruction. Models attempting to describe this process have inevitably run into problems trying to match the dragging and friction forces of grinding plates with the dynamics of a flowing mantle deep below. Results point to a prevalence of slab pull force over mantle drag at the base of plates, which suggests that tectonic plates drive mantle flow. The researchers explain in their report. The picture we get now suggests we're not surfing on a flowing mantle, but sailing with our continental sailboats whipping up whirlpools in the molten sea below. If these models suggest the movements of tectonic plates create currents in the mantle, we find ourselves with a chicken and egg conundrum of asking how currents in the mantle might push around the plates in the first place. Metaphors of boats and suits of armor have their limits. To really understand the complex interaction between the crust and mantle, we need to stop seeing them as distinct materials, argue the researchers, and come up with better descriptions. The descriptions the team arrived at allowed them to recreate a planet like ours and watch it evolve over the first 1.5 billion years. By looking at the mantle and crust as gradients of heat and pressure, they could better understand how they each changed. Their Earth twin revealed a rather complex dance of continental formation, drifting, and mantle flow that shifted over millions of years. About 20 to 40% of the surface, they found, is indeed pulled along by the flowing guts of the planet, but that means as much as 60% of the surface drags on the mantle. These patterns also change over time. The thicker chunks of continental plates are dragged along by deeper currents until they crunch together into a supercontinent. As the supercontinent fractures and breaks apart, the sinking of plates in turn causes the mantle to flow. The model suggests there's a lot more going on down there than we can make out from the surface, which has made it challenging to imagine just how the mantle's currents and the crust interact. So much of what happens deep beneath the surface has grave repercussions for life on the surface, from earthquakes to volcanoes to the protective magnetic cage shielding us from blasts of high-energy particles from the sun. We're at the mercy of geology we're still working out. The research was published in Science Advances. This is on Science Alert. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.